automation allows people to scale themselves the way that no other time in history can you do this. And to tell you the truth, I was telling this to one of my friends, because the rise of AI in assistance, no code is great to be on rails when you don't want something to break. I'm trying to stop them from wasting 6 months to 18 months of their life. I'm trying to have these conversations. Yeah, man. Yeah, always. So I guess I just always love creating. You know what? You're really making me think. You're really making me think.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna tell you what really got me started. I just thought about this.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator. Today I'm talking with Doc Williams on the Poly Content Spotlight. He is a brand developer, podcast, and content producer, helps creators build their online business with step by step guides without having to learn to code. So thank you for being here.
Hey man, thanks so much for having me.
Super excited to talk to you again because I know I had you on the Polycast, but having you on here is really cool as well. Between automation and no code, you definitely know a lot about just being a creator, and I'd love to have you on here about this creator show. That's why I'm just super excited because having you as a guest is really meta because obviously we're going to talk about your content creator life, but we're also going to be able to get into some of the workshop kind of talks, and it's going to be nice.
I love it, man. Yeah, no, this is gonna be great.
So the way I like to break the ice, and I don't know if you remember this from the Polycast, is to have you share something about yourself that no one knows about you.
Mm. Oh man, that's interesting. Something that people don't know about. The problem is when doing so much content, I talk
Mhm.
so much. Maybe there would be something. I'm left-handed, and like it's a really weird grip of how I hold a pen. I guess maybe that's something that I know. I mean,
It's
everyone
unique.
always busts me up, but like no joke, like that, like that's how I hold a
It's
pen.
kinda,
So
it
like
seems like it's very
maybe that.
secure.
Oh yeah, that thing that's a no, that thing's not going anywhere. That's
How
not
do you
that's
hold
it.
chopsticks?
Oh, same way. um, I think yeah, no, yeah, everyone always used to. I think most left-handed people like just have a weird writing style. So mine, everyone always talks about my hook grip. So like my hook, like, and if you're weightlifting, you know about hook grip. So like it just works on so many levels. It's great.
I love that. It's very efficient, and that's a great way to kind of break the ice. I love that question because it just makes things kind of smooth afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was I forgot about that. So I was like, man, I gotta think about that. I had to go a
I like.
different option.
What do you? What's your option?
No, well, see, the other thing is I usually talk about like all the jobs that I've had,
Mhm.
but I don't, but I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't know. So I'm probably told you this. Like I've had over 57 and my friend has had 83. So he's the only one that's ever beaten me.
Mhm.
But, yeah, but I was like, I don't know if I've gone through the list before. So that's why I was like, oh, I got to cycle through something else. I don't talk about my writing. So like had to go with the left-handed thing.
Well, that's interesting because I think we did bring it up, considering the whole other show that I do is about being polymathic and doing many different things. I'm sure you probably brought up on that show. It sounds familiar, honestly. And yeah, given the fact that you're a content creator, I was gonna ask, what got you started?
What got me started in content creation? Well, that brings me back. I started creating content when I was in high school. So I started probably 2005, 2006. And I was just, that was before you could even make even a career out of YouTube or anything. I just don't even think that was on the like radar. So I would
Mm-hmm.
make these skits with my friends and I just could record like I now everyone has a phone and can record, but like you had to spend so much money on just cameras and everything like that. So that was my first real amount of money that I could spend on it. And so I would just do skits and there was this channel on YouTube that would show you how to do special effects, like backyard special effects. And so I was always doing skits with my friends. So I think it was a mixture of that. And I loved old Kung Fu movies. This was when I was still DJing. So I would do like short skits and then I would dub all of them over with all of my records of all these different one liners from different records I had.
I like how you're able to bring two different things together.
Yeah, man. Yeah, always. So I guess I just always love creating. You know what? You're really making me think. You're really making me think.
Brilliant.
I'm gonna tell you what really got me started. I just thought about this. It's a really, really obscure documentary. It's called Star Wars to Jedi. This is back
Mm.
on VHS, and it was the making of Star Wars, the original trilogy, 4, 5, and 6. And most kids, I guess, I don't know, they would watch the, regular Star Wars. For some reason, my parents would only let me have two. So I only had Empire and I had the documentary. And I have watched that documentary. It's got to be over 450 times, like easily, easily. And so I was always interested in behind the scenes of movies, documentaries,
Mm.
not making like a full movie, but just like behind the scenes and small skits because I love seeing that. So I think it even started that that far back because before my cameras I could buy, I would take tons of pictures because I couldn't afford a camera to do the film. And yeah, that's my earliest one.
I love that. It was so early on, and it kind of ingrained in you so early too, and it was a natural inclination.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So, out of curiosity, how many like channels do you have now? Did you dabble in many podcasts? What were Because if someone looks you up, they might only see a handful of them, but I know you have a lot more out there.
Yeah, I would probably have probably 7 to 8. I
Mm.
mean, you gotta understand. Not only did I was on like YouTube, I was back on Daily Motion back in the day. If
Oh.
anyone knows what that one was, so I have a lot of channels. I have a lot of channels, and then now I primarily like the channel that I guess I'm most known for was really a fluke. That wasn't meant to be. And then I have two other ones. So I have DIY Media Makers and then I have Docs. So that's going to be all my micro documentaries. Another product is called Docs, but we're making a new YouTube channel. So those are going to be the three. And then if you want to talk about later on, I'm working on documenting how to create a YouTube automation channel because I'm fascinated by it. There's a lot of like mysticism, and I think there's just like a lot of bait and switch and like, is this real? Are people making this much money? And so I'm fascinated. So I'm in a group right now, a paid group. I'm going to be paying a consultant and I'm building it out on my own to show the whole process. So that's something else going on.
I remember just a couple years ago, you and I nerding out about this idea of like making these automated Reddit channels, and I was sending you a whole bunch of links about these Python scripts that people were making, and I was almost really excited about this idea of combining all these different things. I have a YouTube video saved on my playlist that's like making a lo-fi channel, right? Lo-fi music channel that's automated, and then there's obviously these Reddit videos. There's also these AI motivation videos, all these different AI and automated generation tools out there that are making these different channels, but no one's combined any of them. And I think that would be a really interesting concept, especially if you can get a really good niche to kind of bring it all together.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of research to be found there to do it, but I think it's possible. There's so many combinations. I don't know if I'm going to make it another YouTube channel. Right now, it's just a Notion document that I think people just friends of mine just find it funny, so I share it. But it's called like the Outer Rim of YouTube, and it's just
Mm.
all of the random channels that I love, like looking at and how they actually make money. I was at Vid Summit. No, what is it? I was at the end of 2023. I was at Vid Summit,
Mhm.
and I met a guy that his whole channel is just doing elevator videos, like him
Hmm.
in like glasses going up and down elevators, and it's a pop off channel for him. There's so many different ones, and like you were talking about subreddits, there's a huge subreddit enthusiast of different elevators. Like I didn't know this was a thing. And this one guy was getting like 8 million views on some of his like elevator videos. It's crazy.
Hmm. It is crazy. And I got the whole Outer Rim idea is kind of interesting, kind of almost harkening back to Star Wars. And it's one of those things too where just making content automated without being, overly automated, if that makes sense. That's kind of the balance. And I hate those channels that are just completely automated. It kind of just, takes away from the attention from creators who are putting the effort in.
Yeah, I think it's a great assistant. I hate that. I'm a huge fan of like the Celtics and like when I can even tell like I'm like, oh, this is automated. Like they got me so good on the thumbnail, but I'm like,
Mhm.
this is trash. I gotta leave. So, but I think there's a lot of ways to streamline the process, make it efficient, make it for, just one or two people to manage quite a few channels if they do it right. But fully automated, yeah, I think it's faulty right now.
Yeah, I before I get to the next question here, I kind of want to toy this idea with you. I love the idea of consistency, but it's something I've always struggled with as a creator. That's obviously what a lot of creators struggle with. But I thought about what if you could do a automated YouTube series where, like, let's say a subreddit video or something like that, where it could be generated on its own every week, allowing you to keep that consistency on YouTube, so YouTube knows that you're going to be on there. You're still generating your own content as well, making whatever kind of content you make, and that way you have some sort of consistency layer. And then if you miss a week, you still have something going out, so YouTube's not going to necessarily like push you down.
I like it. I like it. And yes, I definitely think consistency, especially like when you're first getting started. My channel is not like huge. It's right now it's about to hit like 30,000, but I've seen it for larger ones, smaller. I will say when you're a smaller YouTube channel, yes, consistency allows you to be rewarded because you're building up your inventory, seeing what your audience likes and all these things. What I've seen is, and like I used to get so like religious, I have to do this, this, and this. Every time that I would be less consistent, my numbers would shoot up.
Hmm.
Every single time in the last like year and a half. I'm like, no, 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 I need to put out 4 to 5 videos. And then like every time, like when I was gone this summer, like it's my highest peaking
Hmm.
viewership. And I'm just like, and I know there's tons of reasons why it could be, but I definitely think I think consistency, and I think it also depends on the type of channel.
Hmm.
Every channel is totally different. Their audience is totally different. I know, like, my wife is always watching like kit bashing videos. Kit bashing is like they make like small models out of like some make it out of trash, some make it out of other like models. I don't know why we're talking so much about Star Wars, but like I guess the first one would be like A New Hope and how they did it with ILM with Industrial Light and Magic, and so a lot of people do that now, like Boy Lie Hobby Time and like
Hmm.
Craftsman, and sometimes they're gone for months at a time, and their audience, like when they drop a video, they'll come right back. It's very interesting. There's a certain level, or depending on the cadence. Now I
Hmm.
understand news channels. Guess what? You're gonna have to be putting out clips like nonstop. But there are tons of industries where it can be evergreen, topical, and you don't have to be putting out so much content and be on this grind. It just, but it depends on the category.
One channel I always think of is like Kyrgyz Scott. They used to put out at least one video a month. That's because it took them so long to make the videos. But their channel does so well because those videos are so high quality. People always come back. And if anybody sees their video like on their for you like the main page of YouTube, like people immediately click on it because it's one of those things where you know it's going to be good. But it's just interesting how like they put out so little. It's just a higher quality, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And this is a small one, like, and also I'd say like I think everyone, and I like Mr. Beast. I think he's interesting and I don't have anything a problem with it. I just think a lot of times it's so much of an imitation game. But then like if you look at like Jacob Geller, who does like video game essays, and the pacing is so slow. And I used to
Hmm.
watch, my wife would watch, and I'm like, this is like, how does he get any views? But it just shows you like just you don't have to be this quick editing, like all these things. It's like know your audience, edit
Hmm.
towards what your audience cares about. And his are great, but like man, his are crazy. His are crazy. Like the like history of orbital rays in video games and what that means about like post-apocalyptic like society. One was
Hmm.
like how did headshots in games, like how does that affect society? Like it's really, and it's all about video games, but
Hmm.
like it's a broader subject. And these videos are like 29, 45 minutes. And I know now people are saying like, okay, long form is coming back, but I'm like, I think it's always been there, depending on the industry and depending on
Hmm.
the
The
audience.
subject and whatnot.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
Well, we're getting kind of meta here, and the question that keeps popping in my mind that I want to ask is, what do you think is the meta of, I guess, content creation, but YouTube maybe in particular, considering?
Yeah. So the meta right now, I think it's great to get started. I think the meta is just whatever you want it to be. Like, yes, I think the big YouTubers, like, if you look at, there's so many big channels in these niche audience though. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people
Yeah.
obviously know Mr. Beast and Marquez. There's
Mhm.
tons of different ones, but like if you drill down, there's so many different ones that if you're creating quality content for the industry or for the audience, you're gonna win. And if that looks like 6 minutes, 48 minutes, I think people are understanding that it doesn't have to be. I think people have been gaming themselves so much, myself included. Like, oh, it has to be under 15 minutes. Like, it has to be this format. Like, all of these things. And with YouTube, they're giving us so much analytics. It's just like you go and create great content for your audience. Like, it will figure itself out later. And so I do see long form coming back, but I just see that diversifying so much. Pat Flynn with his Pokemon channel or his trading card,
Yeah.
channel, it's just like, what is he at? Like 750,000 now?
I just came across that this week. I didn't even know he had it until this week, which is kind of crazy to me. But it's one of those things where, like, I grew up loving Pokemon cards, and I was like,
Yeah.
Pat, you're freaking awesome. I'm gonna subscribe right away. But it's just one of those things where, yeah, it's growing substantially.
I love that. Like, there's another one that I watch. First of all, I don't play Magic the Gathering, but there's this guy called Alpha Investment. And all it is the economy of Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. So I just watch them. I just watch the videos. I don't play the game. I don't buy them. I'm just like, this. You know what? I love obsession. I love fanatics. And so finding channels like that. I'm going to say one more. Bobby Fingers.
Okay.
Bobby Fingers is almost at 100K, and he's put out like 5 videos. And all it is him making clay replicas of celebrities and telling a story. It's ridiculous. So like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the meta is do quality work, and it does not have to look like Hollywood. Like, I think a lot of people think that quality is like, it has to be in 8K. You've got to cut it looking like a professional. People just want you to produce content that they want. And if you can find that combination and listen to people, that's the cheat code. That's the cheat code. Now, you might not have 1 million subscribers, but I can guarantee you can make it profitable enough that you can make it at least a side hustle into full time just by doing that.
Definitely, and it's one of those things. Since we're mentioning different channels, there's this one really cool one. I don't know if they really continued it, but it was called "What's on Your Feed." They had like this podcast, "What's on Your Feed," and they interview you, and you go through different channels that show up on your feed. You might pick up like 5 that you really, really like. That's what do you like to watch? And I thought that was such a unique idea. Like, everybody's YouTube feed is going to be different. Everybody's homepage is going to be different. What's on your homepage? What's on your feed? And that's just a fascinating concept.
I love that. I got to look into that. I love it. I do that with my friends.
Mm.
I ask them kind of, but I just lean over because I love seeing how people that are not creators interact with YouTube. And like I look at I look at their hand behavior of how they hold their phone, how they're interacting with YouTube. And I love it. Even over the last year and a half plus with shorts, I know a lot of friends, and my wife's like, I'm never going to use shorts. I'm not on TikTok, all this stuff. Guess what? They love shorts. I get so many shorts from people. It's just fascinating just by behavior of where they're putting the buttons and what they're promoting. Yeah, it's wonderful. I think YouTube is awesome. I really do. I think it's awesome.
And I think it's really fascinating too how people get so against short form content, and yet, like you said, they'll consume it on, like, they hate YouTube Shorts, so they love TikTok, or vice versa. And what's really funny is that I use Opus Clip quite a lot, and I post maybe 10 clips a day. Like, it's insane how much I post, but I cross post that to TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, and Pinterest. And I'm seeing great growth on YouTube and Pinterest. The other two iffy, but still, it's one of those things where my efforts are showing, and it's helping me grow, especially since I'm not as consistent with my longer form videos. And so, like, yeah, it's fascinating that, like, the dynamic, the economy.
Yeah. Now I had to do more. I was against short form, not that in the concept I consume a lot of it. I just didn't know how I felt with my content if I could put out the quality that I wanted to
Mhm.
in short form, but I think I just had to get over myself, and it's like, just do it. Like, just stop it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to using Opus Clip more and doing more short form stuff in the coming months.
Well, and even as much as I love OBS, there's other ways of doing it too. OBS Studio is what I use to record my solo videos, and there's a vertical plugin that allows you to set everything up all vertically, and I love that. And I have my camera too that could also rotate vertically, and I figured if I could use both of those, maybe put it through Opus to get captures or something like that. But regardless, use both of those, make a whole bunch of shorts very quickly, kind of batch them out like people do with longer videos. I think that's another way of just kind of going about it too, and you can kind of have a little bit more control over what you want to show on the screen and stuff like that.
I like that. Yeah, I saw StreamYard release something for vertical now,
Mhm.
for IG lives and just recording in general. Um, yeah, it's fascinating. I'm interested. I'm interested. We'll see. To be continued, but I
Yeah.
think it will be good stuff.
So we're mentioning a couple tools here like StreamYard, Opus, OBS. What tools do you use for creation and repurposing?
Oh man. All right, so it kind of just depends on the season, right?
Okay.
So right now, my current stack is so I use StreamYard as my main
Mhm.
thing. So StreamYard is where I record 98% of all my content. Before, if people have seen it, and some people, you've mentioned it too. I've tried tons of different editing styles. Like I had someone use CapCut. I've tried just like all these things. From what I do is I do a one take in StreamYard, and I might mess up the first 5 seconds, but I'll clip that and do it. But the whole video is in one take. Those are the best that perform. Anything that I do all of this editing, spent all of this money on it never like I don't want nothing. So I was like, forget that. I'm just doing a one take and that's it. And I just upload it. So StreamYard is my main thing. Then I use something called transcript.lol. And
Okay.
so what that allows you to do is basically it builds out transcripts, but it also builds out blogs for you. It builds out um, uh, Twitter threads. I'm not going to say X threads. It's just ridiculous.
Screw
So
that. No.
it also does your descriptions and your chapters for YouTube. So I use
Mhm.
a lot of that kind of repurposing for my current stack. That's one of my favorites. Then right now it's in the stack, but I'm learning how to use it. Is Opus clips and then also repurpose. I took a small break using repurpose.io just because I was looking at like ROI, like my return on investment, and I was so much like I was like, okay, I got to be omnipresent, but I was seeing not only the growth that I wanted to be, but like where was I making the most impact and where was I making the most
Mhm.
money? And so I just doubled down on that. Then I'll go to other platforms. But I know my bread and butter
Yeah.
is YouTube and Twitter. So I spend the majority of my time on YouTube and then go from there. And then also too, I have transcript is a lot of things that I use for AI, and then I can talk about my other like workflow and things like that. But yeah, those are my tools for right now.
Well,
Really
and
shortened.
I love that, especially well, you and I both have pretty big tool stacks too. So I understand. Like, thank you for shortening it down for me. But I feel like we might get more into that too because I asked that question to all my guests, but for you in particular, I might even add in like automation and no code tools as well as a follow up question. Before we get into that though, we're using Riverside right now to record. They actually have like transcription and AI kind of features too. Like here's a summary, here's your timestamps. It's kind of nice in that regard. There's a lot of tools that are going out there. Recast Studio is interesting too with that. They'll make tweets for you and stuff like that for you too,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I forgot. What was it? You said recast? Was
yeah.
that?
Because that repurpose is the godfather of all repurposing tools at this point, as
Oh
you
yeah.
know. You and I both talked about that even back on our original interview back in the day. And
Yeah.
after that, Chopcast.io, Recast.studio, those are two prominent ones that have been around for years in my mind. And I've talked to the founders of all three of those tools too. But then it was interesting because even though I had access to those tools at some point or another, whether it was paid or just kind of working with the company, I never ended up getting myself to actually repurpose. Opus Clip made it easier enough for me to do it. But I think that's kind of a point to make where it's like, do the tools help you get it done? Or is your backlog too big? Something like that too. Like I had over 120 interviews.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be yeah. And I will say this too. Listen, Annie, he knows I love him, and I've been talking about it for years. Um, bro, like people are talking about how long you've been using it. I'm like, bro, I got it back on the LTD back probably like I don't know, 2014, 2015.
Mm,
It's been a minute. So I've been talking about them a long time. I think Opus makes it so easy because the UI UX and the
yeah.
onboarding is so different. Repurpose, I still feel it is so powerful, but it's similar to I feel like doing it with like Zapier or Make, where it still takes a lot of thought and effort to what you're going to do. An Opus clip reminds me similar to like no code hasn't had the moment in the spotlight how AI has. When
Yeah.
ChatGPT, like people understood it immediately, and no code, I don't know if they'll ever have that moment, but no code hasn't captured the imagination like AI. And I feel the same way with like Opus Clip versus like Repurpose or older tools. It's so intuitive. That's what makes it so special.
Well, I cranked through literally over 100 interviews within a matter of like a month, and that was one. The only reason why I took that long is because I took that long, not because the tool did. And honestly, too, I love how you mentioned how AI has had that kind of spotlight. No code, I think, is around the corner because these tools keep cropping up, as you know. Like, I'm preaching to the choir here. I've learned from you, honestly, and it's one of those things where I'm curious what kind of no code tools you're using right now. I saw a softer video on your YouTube channel. I've tried softer. I've tried some of these other ones out there. Was it Glide and whatnot? So what's in your stack right now for no code?
That's really funny that you mentioned it. And this is probably going to sound like sacrilege. This is the thing, right? I'm going to just be honest. So I want to say, like, what defines no code? Like, what is no code, right? Because I was, we can have this debate. Like, it's no code can mean so many things for different people. Some people, I was having like a philosophical conversation with someone, and basically they're like, well, no code is really me going to Papa John's ordering a pizza because I didn't have to code it. I didn't have to call. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, hypothetically, I mean, yeah, technically that's not coding, but let's be realistic now.
Yeah.
No code allows you to perform actions or be able to visually program or do something where you do not need to code. The issue, what I find with no code is there's this spectrum of there's so many no code and low code tools, and these low code tools and some of these tools are so complicated at this point, it almost is simpler to use now Chat GPT to code what you need and copy and
Mhm.
paste it. So I think it's going to be an amalgamation of all these things. So I view it as like not just what are no code tools, like what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to do? And so I go with automation and like taking away manual tasks and putting in automation. Are you trying to build an application and you don't want to or don't need to code? Or you're trying to do like a third something else, kind of this other section over here. And
Mhm.
so for me, if I'm looking at my best no code tool, I've been talking about them for years, is Paperform. I view like a lot of people don't talk about them. I guess like, there's tons of like Tallyform is really big right now in no code space. But I'm like, Paperform does everything. Like because I have all of my, I drop in pieces of code to do my email captures on all my websites. They're all Paperform. All my back end of like capturing leads or putting them into Google Sheet or pinging me when I get paid in Slack. I do everything with Paperform. I think 87% of my business is like using Paperform in some way. So that's my main tool. I also use something called Active Pieces, which is basically it can be an open source alternative to Zapier. And
Mhm.
that was basically, I love Zapier. I think it's the best tool for ones that are trying to do automation and like they need handholding. It's
Yeah.
not the most powerful. I think Make is more powerful. But I find that a lot of people like to conceptualize what's happening, they have a lot of trouble with it. So Zapier is, but Active Pieces, it's a like 1/8 of the price. You can actually do it open source and actually just fork it if you want to. So I use a lot of that. I teach a lot about Flutterflow, but I don't actually use it that much because a lot of times when people are asking me about it, yes, I'm like, I will show you how to do this. But more importantly, does anyone want this application that you're building? Like, does anyone want
Yeah.
this? Like, are you going to make money? And that's a hard pill to swallow. Like, it's a lot more sexy to be like, oh yeah, you can build the next X, Y, and Z. But I'm trying to stop them from wasting 6 months to 18 months of their life. I'm trying to have these conversations. So that's a long answer.
It
Um,
is, and it definitely spawns a lot more tangents that I have in mind. I'm trying to orchestrate what should come next. First off, thank you for such a good answer. You're one of the first people who I've known to actually use Active Pieces. I discovered it recently, or I guess a couple months ago, but it was one of those things where it definitely seems like a much better alternative to Zapier. The second thing was Zapier was always so expensive, like you said, like it's way more expensive than Active Pieces, and it always broke on me. It constantly broke on me. I spent way more time fixing it than it ever helped me to automate things.
Yeah.
I also was thinking that I kind of like when we started the interview, I had in my picture you're like the no code guy because that's kind of what I've seen a lot of content come out of you. But you're like you kind of mentioned too a couple times. You're more of the automation guy. You're like the brand automated doc,
Yeah. I think it can go hand in hand, but
automated brand.
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the thing is, no code was I was always using no code for clients, but I feel that automation allows people to scale themselves the way that no other time in history can you do this. And to tell you the truth, I was telling this to one of my friends because the rise of AI in assistance, no code is great to be on Rails when you don't want something to break. And I love software for a lot of reasons because it's so simple and it's my go-to bridging or like gateway to into no code for people to understand it. But when you get into a lot of no code tools, there are clear limitations. There are limitations on everything, but when you want to make it really specified or do certain things, a lot of times you do need to code. And for me, because of my severe dyslexia, I was just not able to be proficient at coding and everything. And now with all of these co-pilots, with with Replit, with Ghostwriter, I
Mhm.
believe, there's so many different assistants. I want to teach people to use automation, to use no code, and then possibly code when it's appropriate for you. I don't think you should be debugging and spending all your time in it, but there are tons of things that I'm working on this new data analyst model because we're doing the no code and AI report, and I needed to look at a certain amount of data, and I need to use Python. So, I mean, there's so many things that you can be doing with coding, and depends on what you're trying to do. And it's just like, okay, no code automation, whatever you want to call it. I just want to use tools to make people have a better life and make more money.
Also, just to bring it back to the whole content creation kind of side of things, as a content creator, we need to have a website. We need to be everywhere, omnipresent kind of thing. These no code tools and automation tools, they help you do that. The reason why I use Zapier was because I wanted a social media RSS to social media automation. And it's one of those things where most of the tools out there I've seen, I will give a shout out to New Link and Publer because they're the tools I use for my social media stuff right now. But New Link is like the only one with actually good RSS to social automations, I would say. And I hate saying that because I know there's some decent tools out there, but like Deliver It kind of failed me a lot of the times, and Publer is not that strong in that regard. But it's one of those things where, yeah, I think that a lot of people don't realize the power of no code as a content creator.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll tell you one other platform that I usually use it for all my clients, for us, SendFox. There's a lot of things that I want them to do more with it, but it's a simple tool. I don't view it as a very powerful tool. It is just so easy compared to my nemesis MailChimp and others. Um, SendFox is really easy. The onboarding is great, and I have used it so many times to help content creators that they get overwhelmed with ConvertKit, Active Campaign. I mean,
Mhm.
constant content. I've used them all. I've used them all, man. And SendFox is not the most powerful, but with the smart campaigns, having the landing pages, I view it as almost like was it Beehive Light or so many things like
Yeah.
it just does the best of all of these different platforms that are more expensive and just more features, and it just gets people to, okay, do you have a blog, do you have a YouTube channel, okay, plug it in, okay, it's
Hmm.
going to automatically pull and just do basically an RSS feed of all of this content. Hey, you need to start collecting emails, here's the template how to do it, click this button, change the color, you're done. It is so good. So I would probably put that in our case as well, of what we use a lot weekly. But that's it, man. I mean, I used to use probably, before I was like hitting like 27 tools, I think maybe I'm at maybe seven now. Maybe.
It's definitely about optimizing your stack. And you and I both are pretty what's the word? I don't want to say excessive, but excitable when it comes to tools. So for
Yeah.
anyone listening in, if you have questions about what you should use, or like if you're having a hard time following along because me and him are just nerding out about it, feel free to leave a comment below. I definitely think that there's another. I've spent a lot of time with email tools as well. I don't think I'm as experienced as you, which is saying something because I've played with a ton of them, dozens of them. But one of them that has come to mind, it doesn't really replace SynFox. It's more of like a complementary one. It's called Mailbrew, and it's like a
Hmm.
personal digest one where you can just put a whole bunch of RSS feeds together and it'll send you an email every week. But what I found it was a really useful thing, yeah, is that I wanted to put my stuff in there. And so if you want to know all my new blog posts, all my new YouTube videos, and all my new podcasts, it'll send you a weekly update of my latest things, like at least 4 or 5 latest things. And that I think is really interesting. That was my main motivation for having an email provider in the first place. Not so much to have an email list, even though I know that's important, because if I had an email list, I wanted to keep up with all the stuff I was creating.
That's so interesting that you mention it. They've been around for a minute, haven't they?
Mm-hmm. I think
Um,
so. Yeah.
they changed their logo. That's why I was like, wait a minute. I just looked it up. I was like, wait a minute. I remember them. I was like, wait, this is all. Yeah, it's. I think, and this is actually. It's funny that you mentioned this. I was just thinking about this. I'm talking to the guys at like Heartbeat. I'm thinking about a new project, and I just love that so much because tons of times people just ask, and that's like one of our products. People just ask for my notes that I write down in like Notion docs because I
Mm-hmm.
just have way too many things. But I was, we were. This was in the back of my head, but I could not remember this tool. And yeah, thank
I
you.
always hate that. Yeah, I'm happy to be able to be that person for you because I hate it when there's a tool on the tip of your tongue and you try to think about it. I've been on a whole knowledge management kick myself, so we don't want to go down that tangent because you and I, with Notion and Obsidian and
No,
capacities, I'm looking at capacities right now for my notes for the show. Like, it's a whole nother tangent there. I'll move on to
yeah,
the next question here. You've made a lot of content around tools for making your own video platform like Netflix, for example, like Uscreen. Why do you think it's important for creators to do that?
because you don't own your channel on social media. You're renting land. Tons of people say this. I don't know who originated it, but the sentiment is the same. If they decide to cancel you or you just do something wrong inadvertently, you're done, right?
Yeah.
And so you need to have your own place, own setup where your people can congregate and go from there. And you need to have something like Uscreen or Heartbeat or things like that where your avid fans or Patreon it could be where you take them off of the social media platform and
Mm,
you're building your own community. I think that is crucial. It's going to be even more important in this day and age, but also too financially for this to be feasible, you have to start doing that. Even if you're not having fans yet that are willing to pay, just getting them to opt in with their email or getting them to another location where they're used to like interacting or doing some kind of content consumption, not on the social media platform, that is key. That is key.
this Poly and Content Creator show spawned off of my repurposing newsletter. And one of my very first posts was don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because, like you're saying, you put your eggs in one channel, for an example, or one particular brand, you may end up losing that brand for whatever reason. You could get canceled for some reason. You like even regardless if you deserve it or not. Sometimes it happens. I know there's tons of horror stories of people getting copyright strikes for no reason on YouTube. And it's one of those things where, like you said, you want to diversify in this way, and having your own home for people to go to is really important. That's why actually I made these interviews go onto a new channel, because that way, if my main channel ever gets damaged or something like that, I'll have somewhere else to be, and I have my gaming channel as well, taking that polymathic approach to poly and content kind of thing.
I love it. No, it's
Yeah.
it's important, man. And you're living it. You're living it.
I didn't want to plug too much of my stuff there, but it was one of those things where that's literally the whole point of the poly and content
You
idea is
got
like
to.
spreading
Come
out.
on, man. Yeah, you got to.
I love your answer, and I've been keeping a close eye on Uscreen for a long time. I've always loved that idea. There was a really cool one called Special.tv, specialproject.io, a while back, and I'm sad that it died out. But that was kind of like a mix between Netflix and YouTube, and I thought that was really interesting. It was basically like a Substack for video.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were interesting. They were a cool crew. And it's tough, man. Like that's a hard that's it's just a hard nut to crack, honestly. It's really, really difficult. And I really think like there's just so many different things. Like, first of all, as a creator, you just got to make it simple. If you like Patreon and you like the onboarding, like just use Patreon. If you want your own and want to have more, control, I like Super pass. I always forget super pass and super base. Like, why does everyone have to have it so similar? But it's super pass. I know they used to get mad at me because I used to say super base in all their videos, but like, it's too close. It's too close.
Yeah.
Um, but that I view that as a white label Patreon. They don't. They need to change their marketing, and no one listens to me. But I'm like, if they just said that, people would grasp it because people, especially in the creator economy, understand what Patreon is. So if you
Yeah.
say it's a white label Patreon, they're going to, oh, okay, it's my own. Okay, that's great. Because I still think Patreon's good, but even my favorite creators, they'll say, go to patreon.com/, guess what? Patreon's taking all of that real estate because you're saying their name free of charge. They get to be in everyone's head and you're advertising it. So, but there is a give and take because it's so easy for creators to use the platform and not think about it. I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, that makes sense too. But whatever platform, just get off of social media after you find your audience, direct them somewhere else.
It's definitely a very good point there, Doc. And I think one thing that I've been toying with is this idea of like making a multi-platform CMS where you have video, audio, and written all in one. You technically could make it in WordPress, but it's very unstable. Technically, Uscreen I think might have a blog, but it's more focused on video. You need a CMS that's made for all three in one.
I'm going to tell you this. I agree. The problem with that is I don't think no matter any platform that says we're the all in one, you might be the all in one, but you're not great at any of them. And there are ones that could work. Even I think maybe even Podia might be one as you're talking about it. But the problem is I've found that they are usually deficient in one features or going really deep because they're not experts in that area. So they lag so far behind by saying like, "Oh, we can do audio," but it's like your functionality, your player sucks, like all of the use like it's bad. Like what is it? Soundwise? Like Soundwise is made for audio, right? Soundwise, there's so many things you can do with subscription, great. Uscreen was made for VOD. It was made for video on demand. They're now adding in community, but I think they will have, and I've mentioned this openly, they're going to have a hard time to compete with communities like Heartbeat. Heartbeat was made from community manager and operations managers. Like they have that there. So I agree with you. I wish all three could exist. I think the problem is there's no platform that does all three well. So I would I want to hear from the audience because most audiences, if you polled them, are probably closer to like an 80-20 split. I bet most of the audience will prefer one form of content and you can still have the others, but I think that it's not separated equal and that's
I
okay.
also I partially disagree with you there, but I do understand your point. It definitely makes sense, and I think that that's kind of an idea is you don't necessarily have to be a video SMS CMS. You could also just kind of incorporate YouTube and then like a podcast player too. I know like Pat Flynn had a really cool integration with his podcast stuff with his blog on his website. I think he might still technically be using WordPress. Again, though, he's mainly using WordPress just for the blog, but he integrated the podcast stuff on there.
He did. Yeah, I
There
used to
could be
have
an
it.
it could be an interesting way of kind of bridging. You don't have to necessarily be the best at the VOD, but that's kind of what I was talking about too. But moving on, can you share your favorite story that has happened to you as a content creator?
Hmm. There's too many, man. I'll show you like a couple. So I guess my favorite from being a content creator is my most successful video is a video that is unlisted.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is I now work as a consultant for NBA Summer League. And that is because I did a video as a pilot to show them my skills. And that's what got me the job. And
Interesting.
so it 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 really has opened up all the doors to what I want to do and working just because I put out a piece of content, but the thing was they needed to see it. They didn't need to know about the views. They didn't care about any of this. They just needed to see like that I could capture what they were looking for. And that was how we started working together. So
Mhm.
what I really that was like an aha moment for me because I always thought like I had to get to a certain subscriber count or this was, I just had to hit all of these vanity metrics, and really just sitting back and understanding, like, what do I want? How can I cause an impact? How can I really get to the bottom line? And my goals was, when I was younger, it was I wanted to work for an NBA team. This is even better because we're working with the entity that is working with
Yeah.
all the teams. So, like, last year, not only did I work with Summer League, worked with the LA Lakers, got to do tons of different things. Like, that was just
Mm.
a dream come true. And that all became because of the channel. And they wanted me to, use all these no code tools, but they saw my inventory and they saw my videos, so they knew I knew what I was capable of. So that was huge, but it all was because of that unlisted video. So I think that was probably one of my favorite moments. And it goes back to this. There was a documentary, and we made a micro documentary, and it was premiered at Summer League. And it was, people were crying. I was crying. It was real good. Well, at least I thought it was good. But with that one, it was just, man, YouTube just opens up all these opportunities. And another thing too, I never thought anyone would care about my Netflix videos. And to this day, I get tons of people, reality TV stars, boxers, all these things that will hit me up on Twitter or on Instagram because they're trying to create their own VOD, and it's that series. Like, that's almost a 4-year-old series. I only put out like 20 videos, and they're like, we still see you. We're like, which is crazy to me. So I think those kind of moments, I'm trying to think about. Yeah. And I think it was, and I would always, and just in general, I never liked to put myself out there before I did my YouTube video. I would always have my brand name. I would never use my name, but being able to just be vulnerable and to live stream and tell people, hey, I don't know everything. I'm just going to try to experiment. That was just so rewarding, and it just changed my trajectory.
Love that. And I mean, I remember going into these random live streams that you've been doing and just coming to say hi. I'm not much of a live stream person. I don't like watching them myself, and I've only participated in maybe half a dozen myself as a guest. But it's one of those things where I know that that medium is really good, and I want to do more gaming streaming down the line. But I just remember coming into your streams and just seeing how you interact with the audience, making sure that you were paying attention. Not every streamer does, and you just the way you felt natural almost is what I'm saying.
Thanks, man. No, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I really think people with the secret sauce of YouTube is, like, you just got to find a format that works for you. Mine is
Mhm.
live streaming. Like I said, I have severe dyslexia, so, like, using teleprompters, I can't really do that.
Mm.
Really, I have an outline, and then I can just go off the cuff. I cannot do full, like, teleprompting. There's some tricks and there's certain things that I can do to make it a little bit better, but honestly, I just don't enjoy it. I do not enjoy that type. So live streaming, I that was my thing. So
Yeah.
I'm glad that you liked it. And yeah, I think anyone can do it. Anyone can do any kind of forums for YouTube, and it could work. So
And you mentioned something at the beginning of the episode too, where you like doing videos that are just kind of straight through, like one take. And that's kind of how I approach a lot of my videos too. I always kind of get mad at myself for not being more like editing focused, stuff like that. I'll make sure it's like really nice. But no, a lot of the time it's about the subject and how you portray it. And if you can do it right the first time, don't over analyze it, if that makes sense.
absolutely, absolutely, it doesn't need to be overproduced. Some are really great, but I also think too, and I'll stop on this tangent. I think when you do long form or people see it without takes, they're going to see more personality of you. I've seen a
Yeah.
lot of creators in person. They're great people, but I don't even get the same cadence when they,
Mm.
because their videos are so edited that I'm like, oh man, this is really different. I find that when you're live streaming, of course, you're still going to have a personality different than when you see someone or when you with your family or close friends, but it's very similar. The cadence is very similar, and I think it makes you feel more close to the person, and either people
Yeah.
will feel stronger about you or they're like, oh, I hate that person, which is even
Mm.
better because you're not going to have someone in the middle. They're
Mm.
either going to love you and they want to support you, or they're like, oh, he's saying too much, or he feels like this and I'm not, it's just not for me. Great. They don't need to be in your audience anyway. And so I
Right.
think it's a great litmus test.
Two different things there. First off, don't let hate comments ruin your vibe kind of thing. Like I keep seeing like random comments on my TikToks, and I'm just like, okay, either I'm gonna delete you or I'm just gonna respond peacefully or whatever. And the other thing was the last interview I did with Simona, we were talking about personas and how whenever you are making content, you have this persona. Is that the same persona that as you in real life too? And a lot of the real true creators, it is the same, whether you're in person or not. Maybe you're like a little bit more like excitable on the camera, but for the most part,
Yeah.
it's the same you.
Yeah, yeah. I think it just has to work that way because if not, I think that would just be stressful.
Yeah,
Like, putting that on all the time. I don't think it's sustainable,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I always say that like so I mean, I put it up a couple times when I was writing for ESPN and I used to be a beat reporter like for CrossFit and for WNBA and maybe I'll find it and I'll show it to you. But my first video, I thought anchors, I'm like, they're too over the top. But the camera does take a lot away from you if you do not have a certain personality on camera. It will look like you're bored and you don't care. And so my sideline reporter, I'm like, I'm not going to be that person that's excitable. And it looks dry as a mug. It is terrible. It is terrible. And that was because I was like, I can't fake this. I've got to just be me. But I'm like, when you're on camera and you're conveying something, you do have to do things to your voice. You do have to, because if not, it looks like you would want to be anywhere else but there. And
Yeah.
so, but it still can be in your personality. It's just something to keep in mind. I might have to bring it up. It's terrible. I don't like
Well,
showing people.
you might also have to just like make a video too about just presenting, like just you and I both are using hand gestures. One thing I'm doing a lot is looking right at the camera. I don't know if that's what you're doing too, but yeah, it's one of those things
Hmm.
where like if I'm looking at me, it looks like I'm looking down, looks like I'm looking away. Look at you, same kind of deal. And sometimes you're gonna have to look at you don't have to look at the notes. It's gonna happen, but I try to make sure I do that. I try to make sure that I'm not sitting there like yawning in the middle of it. Like I might have to yawn, but I can at least like hide it kind of thing. And it's those kind of professionalism kind of things going on that I feel like is very important as a creator.
Yeah, and I think it's especially when ones first get started. I'm like, you're not going to be perfect. I'm like, just get the reps, just record. I think so many people, they get they're like, I got to do this right, I got to do this.
Mm,
Like, find a place that you enjoy sitting, just sit down, relax. Because if you're all stiff and you're not like, if you're already like clenched, you're not going to do a good delivery. You're not going to feel natural. So I'm like, just put in the reps afterwards. Watch yourself. It's sometimes painful, but like watch it over
oh,
time.
yeah.
And it will be okay. It will be okay. I used to get killed. People used to, even though I would tell people the persona that I'm like, I'm doing a Peter Parker version. I'm going to act like I don't know what's going on, or I'm going to over explain. And people would used to just kill me in some of the live streams. They're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, so there's things of, okay, what am I going to do different here? What am I going to do here? So the way that I combat it, I show people I have an outline, right?
Mm.
We're going to go through an outline. We're going to do this, but now I'm just talking to them like, hey, take a break. You did great. Let's just relax for a minute. I'm going to take some questions. That was a lot of stuff, right? Pause it if you need to. And that kind of alleviated because I was
Mm.
like, no, I just got to pretend like I'm starting from scratch. I'm just opening up. Just, you got to find it. And you don't have to listen to every comment. And, you balance it out. You don't live and die of every comment. You don't try to appease everyone. One last thing. I didn't realize so many people watch my tutorials on like 1.5 and 2x because they're doing. So I used to think like, oh, I got to have background music. And tons of people would be like, bro, it sounds terrible. Stop using music. And I was like, but I'm a content creator. I got to have music. And all my videos looking at average view duration, average view percentage, when I use no music, and some people in the comments are like, this is dry. I'm like, well, it's not for you anyway. You ain't going to be staying here anyway. My numbers go up through the roof. Whenever I use any kind of background music, I just it doesn't perform as well. Maybe that's just me, but all my tutorials, because long form, doesn't work. Doesn't work.
I don't know if I should admit this, but I've watched most of your videos at a higher speed.
See, yep,
See,
yep.
I have a video speed extension where if I just press G, it automatically goes at 1.8 speed, and then if I press like D or S, it can up speed and slow down. And I usually watch most videos at 2 or 2.5x speed.
That's
But I had to
hilarious.
train myself to do it though. And then the other thing was going to be Harris Heller is an interesting creator. He makes a lot of unique content that other people don't really touch on, especially when it comes to live streaming. And one point he made a while back, don't even remember when this was that like when you're making a live stream, let's say it's an hour long, try to have bullet points like you're saying there too, and try to chunk out certain sections that you're trying to make into videos later on. So you can actually essentially batch your content using the live stream.
I love it. Yeah, I view it as I didn't know he said that. That's wonderful. Or maybe he said it and I just by osmosis it just
I
became
think you
part of
probably
me.
also just made it up yourself too. Like it's one of those things where you are experiencing this place too. So give yourself some
Yeah.
credit here, Doc.
Maybe. It's I just viewed it as like I viewed it as a late night show. Late night
Mm,
shows have segments and I always try to view it as like okay, you have an intro, you have your punchlines, you're going to go into this segment. And so it kept entertainment. I never had huge live streaming numbers anyway, people watching live, but it was entertaining to me because I knew that there were certain beats that I'm going to hit and then later on like you said you could just repurpose, but I always found like if you make it like a variety show or like you're having a guest star and you really make it fun for yourself, you're gonna feel it in replays. You're gonna be able to clip it, and you're gonna be able to do this long term. I one thing that really irks me is
mm,
when tons of creators on Twitch or anywhere they're like, "Oh, I'm so bored. The chat has to entertain me." I'm like, bro, they don't have to do a thing. They don't have to do anything about this. And if that's what that is a terrible way to be because that
mhm,
will not only are you putting too much energy on the audience, which could be
mhm.
great, but also you're going to burn out or you're just not going to do it anymore. What happens when people are leaving? What happens
Yeah,
when no one's there? What are you going to stop? So I think you've got to have the format in your head. And if it's
yeah.
great content and you're helping people, that's all that matters.
It's like kind of the same idea of being alone with yourself in a room, right? I mean, obviously you kind of are when you're live streaming, but I mean, like, there's nothing in the room. Like, let's say it's a completely empty room. If you cannot be sane in that scenario, you're not going to be sane with the same thing with live streaming. You have to pretend like you're in the alone with yourself in a room. It's okay. What are you going to do at that point then?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the key. I think if you change your mindset on doing that, you'll be successful. Like
Yes.
whatever success you want to put, you'll be successful if you just reframe it.
Mm. Before I get to the final question here, as a brand partner with Opus, I have a little insider kind of like slip. They're gonna try to do longer clips as well. So you know how a lot of podcasts are doing like those 10 to 15 clips for their different episodes. Opus is gonna try to support that as well, and I think that's super exciting, especially for someone like you when you have those different chunks in your videos.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to let that out or not, but okay. So, what do you have coming down the line that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So for this year, I'll be working with the NBA again for NBA Summer League.
Nice.
That's awesome. I'm having a lot of fun with that. There's going to be some new projects coming out there. The two new channels, it's going to be DIY Media Makers, where it's basically going to be me talking more, but it's going to be more
More.
how people are building businesses. Doc Williams, the way it is and the algorithm, that's going to stay no code and really the more tech side. No DIY Media Makers is teaching ones how to use media to build out their brand.
Mm.
So there's something called a skills portfolio that we talk about, where I think a lot of people they want to either get a side hustle, do something full time, but they don't know how to present themselves online, and so that's why we're teaching them the content you need to create to put in your skills portfolio to be successful in
Mm.
whatever passion they want to do. So that's the biggest one this year. And then we've got Doc Stocks where we're going to be doing micro documentaries. Like, we've talked about how to build your own Netflix, channel, but we're going to be talking about what does it really take to like get a show on Netflix. We're going to be doing interviews and following around crews that are trying to sell their movie. So there's going to be documentaries there. There's a documentary that we're still working out. It's called the psychology of making money. So that's a
Mm.
series that we're working on. And then we were talking about this before. We're working on a YouTube automation, either series or channel. I've always been pretty fascinated about YouTube automation of making a faceless channel, and making it fully automated. But what does that look
Mm.
like? I think a lot of people, it seems too good to be true. I'm going to be testing it out, doing it myself, being in a paid group, getting a coach to show how to do this. And also, there's another one like, I don't know what this series is going to be called, like I'm Famous or something, but it's showing all of the steps of what does it take to go viral on like Instagram to get 100,000 followers? What does it take? How much money does it take?
Mm.
The coaching, the communities you have to be a part of. So yeah, we got all that coming out.
I love that. And whatever links you can give me, I'll try to leave in the description here. But speaking of links, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so two places. YouTube, if you go to youtube.com/DOC, Doc Williams, or Twitter _DOC Williams, Doc Williams. You can find me those two places. I'll respond if you hit me up any place.
I'll have links in the description, of course, for you. And I just want to say, too, thank you again for coming to this new show, but also coming back to me because I had you on the other show, too. Makes me really happy to just have you here, Doc. I love talking to you. I love nerding out with you. That's why I made this show, right? I love talking shop with other creators. And with the podcast, we weren't able to talk enough shop. And so this way we can just spend the whole time nerding out about tools, nerding about content creation. So once again, this is Doc Williams and Destin PolyInnovator on the Poly Content Creator Spotlight. Thank you.
Thank you.